Welcome to Football Game Plan's Best Bets. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Loads of information we have to get into in this particular episode, but we'll start this show by taking a look back at last week to see what I learned in both college football as well as the NFL. One thing I learned last week from watching college football is to not overthink the over-under numbers. A lot of times when we view teams, we tend to view them from the scope of something we've seen before. For example, Alabama has historically had a great defense, and we think every Alabama defense will be just that, the same dominant force. However, things change, teams around them change, scheme changes, and personnel changes. So when we see an abnormally high over-under, it is usually for a reason. And this pandemic football season, what looks to be true is probably very much true. Over in the NFL, I learned that primetime games tend to be extremely chaotic and therefore untrustworthy, especially in the season of pandemic football. Nothing is normal this year, so we've seen some weird things happen in primetime. I will probably err on the side of caution from here on out in those games regarding the point spread, and probably focus my attention and money for that matter on props within those games. It's prop bets time here on Football Game Plan's Best Bets. So let's take a look at some of my favorite props heading into week 6 in the National Football League. As always, you look at the Giants game and who they're playing and take the prop that they will have at least 2 to 3 turnovers total. This week it's the Washington football team. We saw them turn the football over last week against the Rams, and we know the Giants are good for at least 1 turnover. So to me, this is easy money every week, so pound that 108. In the Browns-Steelers game, I look at that Browns offense having some issues against that Pittsburgh pass rush, so I'm going to smash the under here, under 17.5 points for the Browns at plus 240. I think that's the best bet. I think we'll see a tightly contested game between those two. I'm a big fan of the Rams offense, so much so that I'm going to hammer this plus 370 that they'll score first against San Francisco. However, it will be a field goal that they'll score first. I think that'll be the first point scored, with the Rams kicking a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. I think their offense does a great job on opening drives, moving the football. And at plus 525, I'm swinging for the fences here. I think Indianapolis loses to Cincinnati by between 1 to 6 points. I think the Bengals have enough weapons on the perimeter. They have a really good tailback in Joe Mixon. I think what we saw last week against Baltimore versus a very tough defense was more of an aberration. And what we've seen previous to that game is that the Bengals offense can definitely score. I don't trust Phillip Rivers, so I think this is a game that the Bengals can steal, which is why I'm going with the swing of the bat here at plus 525. And finally, at plus 650, I think the Dolphins will not only beat the Jets, but they'll win by between 19 and 24 points. So I'm taking that bet. I think the Dolphins, what we saw last week against San Francisco, obviously is an anomaly. They won't score that many points against Gang Green, or maybe they will. Maybe they can be the team that puts the hot seat even hotter underneath Adam Gase, his former team down there in Miami. So I do see the Dolphins winning this game by a lot of points. So I'm taking a chance here at plus 650. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Now it's time to go against the spread, and we'll start in college football, where there's one big matchup on the Week 7 schedule, and that's Georgia and Alabama. This Georgia-Alabama game, I think, will look a lot like what we saw last weekend with Tennessee and Georgia. We'll see a lot of points scored, but at the end of the day, I trust Alabama's passing game, their deep passing game, to take advantage of Georgia on the corner, so I'm laying at 6 with the Crimson Tide. Still in the SEC, Auburn takes on South Carolina, and they're 3.5-point favorites. The Tigers have really sputtered out of the gate. They luckily won last weekend in the game they should have lost to Kentucky. I think South Carolina is one of those underrated teams that's flying under the radar in the SEC, so I'm taking them in the points against Auburn. BYU taking on Houston, and the Cougars are 3-point favorites in this ball game. This one will come down to which quarterback can you trust. I know we saw Houston just completely come back and blow out Tulane, but BYU is playing for something bigger. I think they're playing for a playoff berth, so I'm laying those 3 with BYU. In this game between Kansas and West Virginia, you might want to jump on the spread while it is right here at 22.5 for West Virginia. I think this is one where the Mountaineers would completely blow out the Jayhawks. Why? Yeah, their offense is solid, but their defense is arguably one of the best in the Big 12. Liberty takes on Syracuse. Liberty to me looks a lot like what Syracuse looked like in their heyday under their current head coach, Dino Babers. So I trust Liberty to win this ball game. I'm a big fan of their quarterback, Malik Willis, lay the 3.5 with the Flames. And Marshall has been a squad that I've been on all season long. They take on Louisiana Tech. The Bulldogs will have an issue up front against the run game of Marshall. So you trust Brendan Knox, the tailback that you see pictured, and their quarterback, Grant Wells, does a good job of being efficient with the football. Trust Marshall, lay those points. Navy takes on East Carolina, and the Pirates have their hands full in this one as they face a triple option offense. Now, granted, Navy did a great job, I thought, of bouncing back from their embarrassing loss to Air Force to give Temple their first loss of the season. So I trust Navy to have 2 consecutive weeks of positive play. I'm laying the points with the midshipmen. SMU travels to New Orleans to take on Tulane, and yes, they will be without their talented tailback TJ McDaniel. They'll be without their explosive wide receiver Reggie Roberson, but I still think Shane Buechele in that passing game will have more than enough weapons on the perimeter to make things easier for them in this matchup, so I'm trusting SMU. UMass plays their first game of the season against one of the better teams in the Sun Belt Conference in Georgia Southern with that triple option, quadruple option if you count the fact that Shai Werts, the quarterback, can throw the football very effectively. I'm laying all the points with the Eagles. And wrapping up our college football section with Western Kentucky and UAB. Now the Blazers enter this game as 13.5-point favorites. I trust Spencer Brown, the tailback, in that offense. This is a very solid UAB team across the board. Defensively, they're very good. I think they'll take care of business against the Hilltoppers. Now let's take a look at some best bets in the NFL, and the Jets and Dolphins meet up in Miami. The Dolphins are laying 8 points. I think you can trust the Dolphins to take care of business. This is a football team that's in a much better spot than the Jets are on both sides of the ball, including special teams. Los Angeles takes on San Francisco. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites. We spoke about their offense being able to hit the ground running and scoring first. I think San Francisco has a lot more issues than what we're seeing out there on the field. So I trust the Rams here and laying those 3.5 points. Green Bay travels to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers, and the Packers are coming off of a bye week, but the Bucs are coming off of an extended rest, having played on Thursday night. I just think this offense of Green Bay is way too explosive, despite not having star players, so to speak, outside of Devontae Adams. I like the consistency here. I like the defensive pressure that they'll bring, so I'm laying the points with Green Bay. We've been big Carolina Panthers supporters here on the Best Bets show because they've covered a lot this season, and now they come into a game entered as 2.5-point favorites against a Bears team coming off a very good win against Tampa Bay. I think this defense for Carolina has gotten better each and every week, and they'll do a good job of keeping the Bears offense sputtering, laying the 2.5 with Carolina. Cincy traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. We spoke about this in our prop section. I do think Cincinnati will keep this one very close here. I'm taking them +8 against the turnover-prone Phillip Rivers. The Steelers will make the Browns work very hard on offense to try to gain points. That's why I like them under 17.5, and we talked about that in our prop section. But in the game, I'm laying those points with the Steelers. I think Pittsburgh's offense can attack you now at all 3 levels. Their run game is competent, and defensively, they'll do a great job of frustrating Baker Mayfield. And finally, Baltimore takes on the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles will struggle with the pressure that's going to come from Baltimore's defense. Plus, they also have the ability to turn the ball over. I think that's just a recipe for disaster for Carson Wentz and that Eagle offense. I'm laying the 8 with Baltimore. So that is it for this edition of Football Game Plan's Best Bets. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.